Mrs. Brew?
Here.
Mr. Babalani?
Here.
Dr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Mr. Pop?
Here.
Approval of the closed session meeting of November 7th, 2016.
I make a motion, we approve the November 7th closed session meeting notes.
Support.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Approval of the regular meeting of November 21st, 2016. Is there any corrections or additions? Now we need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting of November 21st, 2016.
Support.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Approval of manifest 2016-22 in the amount of $385,150.50. Mr. McGinney, any questions?
Yeah, I got one question. Let's see. Page 2, I hope I know the answer already. Gayton Farms and Forest, halfway down there under refuse, wood stump grinding, new compost site, $1,600. Was that the total cost, or was that our share and the township got the 16 also?
That's
That's
total
total, so the township will be reimbursing us for half that. Okay, the only other thing, I just want to make a comment here that we paid in a little over $48,000 to the Michigan Employee Retirement System. That's all I have.
Mr. Babalani, any questions?
I have a couple, Doc. Ray, on the first page, the vehicle towing for the police, was that the new car that broke down?
That was the third car.
Okay. Page 2, under the general fund, about the fifth item down, we have some gloves for $40, and then down further, we have gloves listed again. Same company, is that a duplicate, Mary? It's $147 on the other one, because it includes a bunch of other things.
I'm thinking it's the gloves that are under the supplies, the first number. And then I'm thinking it may be the paper towel, and then like the lock nuts and washers, I think are the equipment, but I can check for you.
Okay. Down under the refuge, Ray, the Gatlin for the wood stump grinding and that, why is that billed underneath the refuge collection?
That's where our costs are budgeted under
For the compost site?
yeah.
And that's reimbursed 50%?
Yeah, that's our agreement with the township.
Okay. The next page, page 3, the storm sewer on 14th Avenue mooring was $850. Is that the reimbursement through Coleman?
No, that's some extra work that was done at the base of the hill.
Okay. On that reimbursement, was that covered for both? I looked in the
Yeah, there were
executive session.
two.
And
There were two manholes that needed to be worked on, or catch basins, and there was one in question, and the second one was legitimate.
Okay, so they're both reimbursed by,
No, one is reimbursed by Coleman, the
And
other
one
is
wasn't.
us. Yeah.
okay, that's all I have.
I have nothing.
Mr. Pop?
I have nothing at this time.
I have no other questions. We need a motion to approve manifest 2016-22.
I make a motion, we approve manifest 2016-22 in amount of $386,150.50.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes. Any questions from the audience on tonight's agenda or any agenda item? Mr. Bilski, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Board. My name's Alan Bilski. I live on Upper Pine Creek Road. And I have a couple comments on agenda item number 14. But since you've got so much business to do here tonight ahead of that, I would like to I have a meeting in Loretto for the Tri-County Snowmobile Club right now. I need to do some business there. I wondered if I could come back in time if I read and do my comment later at the other end of the meeting.
I think you can do it now, Candy, because it's an agenda.
It's under agenda items.
Yeah, agenda items now.
Okay,
Any
agenda
concern?
item also, I'd be able to.
That would be
move
the
it.
appropriate time.
All right. And if you had any other questions about,
If you'd rather come back at the end of the meeting, you can do that.
sure,
too.
I'll do that.
Or you can do it now if you
You
want.
can do it now, Al. We might be beyond that point where you're looking to make comments. I would probably refer to it now if you wanted.
Well, I have just a couple things written down that may be for consideration. Your ban on trucks for the scenic drive. I wondered if you would maybe consider posting no-through truck signs on that route that would connect 573 County Road that goes out to Pollard's, or where the city limit ends, and you come from the county road into the city, and have a corridor through there out to US 8, or I mean to US 2 behind the spring there on Scenic Drive. And no, this is what the county wording is of no-through trucks. It would prevent trucks from utilizing the roadways unless they have actual business on that roadway. In parentheses, the road commission uses this signage on temporary and permanent Dickinson County roads. Continuing, in addition, an ordinance could be placed restricting trucks in conjunction with the road commission placing of and lifting of seasonal restrictions like on the south portion of Dickinson County. So when the spring weight limits go on the county roads, you could incorporate them on your roads. But that way you would allow the trucks to use that road year-round when they're legally loaded and whatever. So that would be my suggestion. And a couple things. Roads are for use, for commerce, jobs, and they're not extension of private driveways. The roads are for everyone. Taxes come from everyone. I know the truck route is now the main street, but if you take a lowboy truck and tractor and trailer, you cannot get that unit under that stoplight onto you get a 4-axle lowboy with a 23-foot well, you are not gonna make that corner on the highway, especially if there's a car sitting in either lane stopped at the light. It's just not something that can be done, so that needs to be considered. Roads are everybody's lifeline. They are for carrying commerce, people, and you got a 3-inch layer of blacktop. Jim Harris tells me that at the county, any road that we have 3 inches of blacktop on is considered an all-season road. I mean, it doesn't even fall under weight limits. So you have quite a investment and a really good piece of work there. So, and protecting it at the weight that you have it is almost, I don't understand it at all. So,
Al, when you said for business use only, no through traffic, does that mean, when you first started, does that mean that you would have to be active logging, hauling back there, or you could just go through? Because I look at it as a little contradictory that, you're saying that no through traffic, and then you went back and you said only for business. Active business, is that what you said?
yes.
So what does that mean?
Which means if there's wood to haul off of the Norway truck trail, gravel or materials, concrete, whatever it has to move that way, it can pass through those roads, and whether it be loaded or empty. And the no-through truck stands for you just can't take a shortcut and use that route. If there is business intended on that route, that you can use the road to do it. So yeah, you can haul on it. The one thing, to point out is the County Road 573 has a bridge down there crossing the Sturgeon. I think it's rated at 104,000 pounds, which is not a Michigan load of logs. I mean, they can't go out. Harris asks our engineer every year, what about the bridge down there? Nope, not yet. It's too good of a bridge yet for the funding to come to replace it with a stronger, higher rated bridge, which would relieve things. But right now, there's no way to take a load of wood that way. It has to come down Main Street and log trucks are kind of broken in half. I mean, it's a straight frame truck pulling a trailer. When you get to lowboys and semis and stuff like that, they're not. It's a tractor with the pivot point close to the front. And you got this long tail behind. And that's where cutting these corners where they don't fit. And even a route that Ray told me about, boy, it's pretty difficult to make that happen. Any cars parked by the Night Owl or anything like that, you can't make that corner. Where if they had to move a processor out there or excavator or something on Lower Pine Creek Road, it can travel those roads across the hill, which is it's not hard enough. The corners aren't wide or narrow enough for them not to be able to negotiate it. So just, so you consider all the things that happen and all the commerce that goes on that road. All right, thanks very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Al. Al, just real quick, just to, go beyond what we talked about, one of the things that, Denny and I had a nice conversation today, and it kind of came through. We actually, we know we have a limited federal aid route system here. I mean, they just threw us in small urban a few years ago, and I actually was trying to get some other roads reclassified, but a number of years ago, I don't know, maybe 4 years ago, remember when we redid Railroad Avenue? Mm-hmm. We actually, in order to do that, I did manage to get that one reclassified under the rural task force. That is an all-season, and we did that so that route, railroad, and then Walnut would be used for truck access. We also did it partly under safety because of the railroad, how it goes straight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And nobody wants to go out and then look back to the right. So we had them agree to the Walnut. So that actually is the best route if you come under and go down Railroad and go out Walnut. Is that should be able to make all those turns.
Well,
That is,
I think it's far better than Main Street.
Now, I agree with you 100% on the Main Street, so.
And there's 9th Avenue too that could be used.
Pardon?
9th Avenue can be used as well, I believe, can it?
No, that's not on the truck access area. No, because it's not federal,
See, that's the thing. I mean, everybody should be getting on the same page here and working because, Norway is situated in a place where it's turning into a bottleneck. I mean, you can't go on the WPA road. You can't go on 573. It's getting, it's getting hard. And I don't know if there's a benefit to the city. I know you've invested in streets, but when the road commission puts down 2 inches of blacktop and as soon as the road is paved, it's open for everybody. I mean, that was our goal, was to make things happen. And I just, would hope you consider that.
We've had trouble last time I was on the council, and where the trucks come down Highway 8 by Danielson's greenhouse, we got the Jacqueline Steel truck that comes and he turns by the waste building there.
Yeah.
That's on the left when you're coming to town, and he comes down Saginaw. And last time that road was done, what was that, 4 years ago, Ray? 4 years ago, that Jacqueline Steel truck rutted that road up by Andy or Marvin Pollard's shop there. Rutted that truck up. So we changed a lot of those truck routes, and
that was a narrow, Saginaw was narrow. You put a big truck coming down there.
and that's 3 inches. So
Most
we've
cities
had
use 3
we've had
inches.
problems.
Most cities use 3 inches, I understand, according to Jim Harris this afternoon. He came out. And typically, they don't even put weight limits on because of that. You know, where the county road system uses 2 inches and uses a seasonal weight limiting system. So, depending on the sub-base of the road, you know, you could have conditions, and maybe down there where you're talking about in Saginaw, that if the peak wasn't mined out of that area, you know, maybe it can't handle.
Because that's actually higher ground, that's, the truck route, I don't know, what street were you talking about before by, David Paul's old house, where they're, Kimberly.
This, yeah, Kimberly Road.
They were supposed to be going down Kimberly, and they don't turn on Kimberly, and that should be a decent ground underground there, I would think. It's
Well,
not like
Kimberly
down
Road,
over here,
You did Kimberly, what, about 10 years ago or something?
but this
We
isn't
didn't do
down
the
on
section
Kimberly.
from US 8 to Stevenson.
Yeah.
We didn't do that section yet.
Okay. US 8 to where?
US 8 to Stevenson.
Oh.
Just that's
Oh,
that first
yeah, all
section,
right.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
about 3 blocks.
And that's what's already, that was already tore up by the Jacqueline Steel truck and the Ammerhart trucks and that going to Lawful's because they don't go the way they're supposed to go.
But you're right, we did Kimberly under federal aid.
Yeah, that was a big job.
That was
Raise the
a
road
big
up.
job.
Big
That was all the way back to 2001,
Yeah.
I believe that.
Well,
I got a suggestion there, Al. You as a spokesperson, or Mr. Olson, or whoever you want to get, and Ray and maybe a couple of us council people, we can get together and hash this out instead of, I don't want to say wasting time standing here, but getting a little group of 4, 5, 6 people and have a good discussion about this. Does that
that's a wonderful thought.
sound like a plan, Ray?
Yeah, it's a
Go
good
along with that?
idea, real good idea.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I'm not saying anything's gonna change, I'm just saying we can
Well, no, but
get in a room and have a donut and a cup of coffee
that's
and
how things move forward.
hash things out, yeah.
Is people putting everything they have toward a goal and achieving it, so. Appreciate the time.
Thank you,
very
Al.
much.
Thank you, Al.
Any other comments on any agenda item? If not, we'll go into number 6, I mean.
Okay, what we have here under, actually 6, 7, and 8, and I kind of take them all in the same conversation. You know, as we're moving forward, getting to bond closing with rural development, there's a number of these types of actions the council's going to have to take. This one in particular is for the authorizing ordinance. We have ordinances 422, 423, and 424. They need to be acted on separately, but those are the 3 projects. We have the wastewater treatment plant, we have the sewer collection system, and the water distribution system. These ordinances were put together by Miller Canfield and sent to rural development. They, and I apologize for handing them out today, but we got them at 4:30 this afternoon because RD had them last week, beginning of last week, but they didn't get their responses back till earlier today, and there were a few items that attorneys at Miller Canfield needed to revise. So they got them to us as quickly as they could out of Miller Canfield, and appreciated it, be able to bring them onto your attention tonight. These are the bond authorizing ordinances. They're the ordinances that authorize for the bond issue. And just so you're aware, and I questioned this a couple different times, seeing if I could get a different answer, but it was the same answer. No, had to ask. But these ordinances need to be published in the paper in its entirety, and they're 20-plus pages. So the Daily News is going to have some print. So, but I don't know if we got any questions. We can try to answer them.
Does that have to go in the Daily News? I know usually we use the Norway Current, but this
The
ordinance
current
has
doesn't
to
even
be.
qualify under the state law,
Okay.
because current went to monthly, and this has to go into a daily. Yeah. Yeah, I asked the question about 5 different ways, and I kept getting the same answer.
Looking through this, Ray, it's kind of a long question here, but it says that we purchased some property from Emerson Barons. I know where that property is. And then Vulcan Lands LLC for $9,700. Was that just easements, or is that actually property purchased?
That was property purchased. Yeah, we purchased the railroad right-of-way and the, there's a section of land. When the original purchase of the wastewater plant, they truncated it basically at the existing fence, and we're constructing headworks that we need to construct would be to the west, and that's the area that we had to purchase. And there were some conflicts between the right-of-way, so we just purchased all the way through from one end to the other on the right-of-way.
Okay, because
Well, that's not actually not railroad right-of-way, that was owned by an individual. Turner Lands ended up securing. Yeah, it was Bob, but he was working for Turner Lands, and so that was, there were a number of railroad right-of-ways that back in the past, Turner Lands secured, and so we just thought it was to our benefit to just clean all that up.
Because I was under the impression last time we talked about this, we were gonna buy the easement and keep the property on the tax roll.
Oh, no, that's been, how many years did we have that? Yeah, that wasn't,
That's not the case?
no.
Well, it hasn't been a recent discussion on this.
I think it was 2010, if I'm not mistaken, 9 or 10.
There wasn't a whole bunch of that discussion.
Okay. If it was purchased now, why is it just, if it was
Well,
purchased
it's
in
getting reimbursed now. We
Oh, it's
purchased
getting
it. Yeah, it's
reimbursed.
just getting
Okay.
reimbursed back
Okay.
to us.
Apparently, the bond ordinance needed language about that. I haven't seen the bond ordinance. That's probably why it shows up there.
Okay,
No, that's gonna be in your reimbursement packet, which is.
yeah, that's where I
following-
seen it.
I was wondering about the Emerson Barron, is that adjacent to the city or is that within the city?
No, that is adjacent to the city. The wastewater plant is in the township.
Would it be appropriate to annex that land into the city?
But it's not contiguous.
Oh, I thought it was. I said it was next to the city. It's outside the.
Yeah, it's outside.
Not
It's
adjacent.
not adjacent directly. There's a piece in between, just south of the city limits.
We need to pass a motion then to approve ordinance number 422.
I make a motion, we approve ordinance 422, the USDA/RD sewer bond phase 1 authorization ordinance.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Item number 7, ordinance 423. Do you need any further discussion, or we need a motion to approve ordinance 423?
I'll make a motion, ordinance number 423 USDA/RD sewer bond phase 2, authorizing ordinance.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Number 8 on the agenda, ordinance 424. Any discussion, or do we need another motion?
I make a motion, we approve ordinance 424, the USDA/RD water bond authorization ordinance.
Support.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Item number 9, approval of the USDA RD water and sewer project reimbursement packages.
Okay, now, we just mentioned about the reimbursement, specifically with the land purchase. Since we started this project in 2006, it was always the intent that, you know, when we closed the bond, that there were eligible costs that the bond proceeds would reimburse the fund. And that's what's in your packet tonight. Eligible costs that we've been expensing at this point would be engineering costs, labor costs, or legal costs, the land purchase costs, surveying, if we had any surveying. And so what we have for you are the backup information of what those are. We submitted those to the Rural Development Office, and the amount for reimbursement is $233,934.81 for the water fund, and $583,690.92 for the sewer fund.
Now, will this, when we take this reimbursement, will that make them funds
Yes, and
out of the red then?
in the next one, we were talking about the deficit elimination.
Yeah.
That's
Will-
part of-
Will that take us out of the deficit?
That will
then?
take us out of the deficit immediately for the sewer, for the water, because of that issue we had a couple of years ago where we
The froze.
used, because of the freeze issue, it's gonna take us an extra year. So not this fiscal year, but next fiscal year we'll be out of the deficit. And that's what we show in
Yeah, I
our
saw
deficit
that.
elimination. $583,690.92. Yes, because it's the same fund.
My only comment is these need to be approved one at a time, not all three at once. Need to do so. Should do so.
We can do the sewer fund as one though, can't we?
I don't care, they're separate submittals. And, normally, what, probably okay, because all she's gotta do is write it, move and support it, they can be the same things. When we get to construction, and we have separate pay estimates, they're gonna be separate.
Right. Because there's three projects, two in this.
Whether you wanna have two sets of names 3 times, I don't really care, just write some.
So it has to be 3 different motions?
Two different motions.
2
Doesn't
sewer,
have to be, it can be 2, we'll just put the
sewer
same
and
names
water.
on 2 sewer ones.
Okay.
We'll start with the first one. For the,
I'll make a motion to approve USDA RD water project reimbursement package.
Do you need them all?
Yeah, put the amount in it, in your motion.
What was the motion on that one? I'm sorry.
$233,934.81.
What he said.
What I said.
I would, Ray, I think I would actually make all 3 of those separate ones with the dollars are separate. So it's absolutely clear.
I'll support that motion. Roll call, please.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes?
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
We need a motion on the first sewer project.
I make a motion, we approve the USDA RD sewer project reimbursement package. Is this the number right here? $586,150.
Now, he wants them in a split in two, so
I
phase,
think you should do them per the summary.
that's
payment
phase
plan
one,
you have.
and that's phase two. So that would be the plan, that's the collection.
So we'll do the plant right now, that's phase one, $492,739.01.
Support.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes. And for the third,
I make a motion, we approve the USDA RD sewer project reimbursement plan, phase number 2. It's the collection side for $190,951.91.
Support.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
yes.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Item number 10, Resolution 2016-24, the Water Fund Deficit Elimination Plan.
As we, again, as we just mentioned, as part of our annual audit, the fund has a negative position at the end of the fiscal year. There's a requirement from the Treasury to do a deficit elimination plan. We actually had a deficit elimination plan already in place for water from last year, but the Treasury under some of the new rules require that even though it was a multi-year plan, which basically is the same as what we have, they do require council to approve it each year. So we have two resolutions, and same goes for sewer. I believe this is this first year for sewer, is it not, Mary? Yeah. So as we show in the plan, the reimbursements pretty much take us out of deficit. So Resolution 2016-24 is the deficit elimination plan for the water, and Resolution 2016-25 is for the sewer.
Can we make that together, or should that be separate?
Do
too,
that
right?
separate, please.
I'll make a resolution that 2016-24, the water fund deficit elimination plan be approved.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Need a motion for 2016-25, the sewer fund deficit elimination plan.
I make a motion, we approve Resolution 2016-25, the sewer fund deficit elimination plan be approved.
Support.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Number 12, Resolution 2016-26, USDA RD Water Project Loan Resolution. Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, again, these are the last two items. There's the Resolution 2016-26 and Resolution 2016-27. There are two resolutions for they're called loan resolutions. I did just receive those. In fact, I received them after our packet went out, so, but we do need to get those moved forward, required under the project. It's a standard form through USDA, so
These are new because of the new money. There were ones before. These are revised because of the additional funds.
Any other questions, or we need a motion to approve Resolution 2016-26?
I make a motion, we approve Resolution 2016-26.
Support.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution 2016-27.
Support.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes. Approval of truck route exemption from Ordinance 412. Mr. Anderson?
okay, thank you. This is the agenda item that Mr. Bilski was referring to in general, I guess, on the truck route exemptions that we had from Ordinance 412. Ordinance 412 was put in place in 2014, and it was to deal with issues that the council was receiving at the time in dealing with the combination of the new streets and some of the complaints about some of the larger trucks in the residential neighborhoods. As part of that ordinance, there's a provision which allows an individual that if it owns a truck to have an exemption, come to council and ask for an exemption to allow them to park their vehicle by their house. That's it can only be authorized by the council as it stipulates in the ordinance. Mr. Rick Gustafson has applied for such an exemption, and I guess just come on up and present it.
My name is Rick Gustafson. I live at W5819 Scenic Drive. I applied for it because I guess the simple fact is I've lived at the residence for 12 years. The taxes on the road for it to be maintained. The road has never been in very good shape since I've lived there. I just want to be able to access my residence with the truck, and that's where I do my maintenance on it, is at my house. That's, I mean, what it boils down to. I don't understand why I can't access my property with an empty truck.
What is the actual weight of the truck empty?
57,000.
And you wouldn't be driving on it full, though.
No, because under the exemption, it would be empty only.
The only thing that I got, Rick, is we had some concerns from some of the residents up there. And if somebody sees a truck up there, we're gonna have problems with the other trucks. I think Denny had a good point when he was talking to Ray. I do think we need to look at this, but it's gonna be a lengthy process, and I think you should be involved in it. The council people, a couple of the councils sit down with a couple of you folks, and we should look at it. But, you know, we had a little bit of damage to the road. I don't know where it went now, but it was there. It's not saying that it was done by an empty truck, but we've had a lot of trucks going through there. And we have a tremendous amount of money in that area, and I think that we should look at it, but I don't know if we should make an exception right now until it's looked at.
I think we should look at it too, probably.
I think we should look at it.
I think we should look at it, but I don't see why we can't, because this is kind of sprung on you quick like. Why we can't like give you a 30-day exemption, start with that?
Yeah,
I mean, if the rest agrees with it, I don't know how they feel about it, but I'd be willing to go like, just say 30 days and then maybe down the road we can get together, talk and find a place like Mark had mentioned downtown here, someplace where it'd be a park and ride type
We
thing
already
where
have that.
you could,
It's ready. Isn't it right?
Yeah, without the plug-in at this
Without
point.
plug-ins.
We talked about getting the plug-ins in
Plug-ins,
place
yeah.
soon,
Well,
too.
because wintertime, they're gonna,
But he can't just take and disconnect. I mean, that's, if you have a regular tractor with a regular trailer, you can disconnect the trailer, and actually the tractor is under 26,000 pounds. For the most part, they can take it home. In his case, he can't do that. From a technical standpoint, you know, he's actually correct. I mean, when you go through and you look at the load distribution amongst the axles and tires, you know, the more axles you have, the less load, or the more distribution you have. And so one of the areas that we should look at in our ordinance is, and our ordinance was developed not just for weight, but also size, you know, depending on different limitations in different areas. And you know, when you try to put all that into one ordinance, it's challenging. But as far as the weight goes, we had 26,000 pounds, and we put a lot of thought on that because of business that goes on, delivery trucks and whatnot. But we didn't account for this situation. And, you know, maybe that as part of our conversation, maybe that's something, and with some technical assistance, that, you know, we can add assurance if we do allow that, you know, that's part of the ordinance.
You've been driving up there now, right?
Yes.
Right. So I thought that was the exception.
Well, we
And I
gave him
feel
2
like
weeks to get to this point.
But if you do the ordinance for him, then you gotta do it for everybody if they wanna go through.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful when you do that. I think that you look at,
I mean, it's nothing against you,
I'm
honestly.
just looking to get access to my home, where I, you know,
And you said you do maintenance on the truck there as well.
yes.
You know, I think that the asphalt is fresh, and I think that I think we could have a possibility of it breaking off. You know, you are making some sharp turns back onto the pavement. I went up there and looked, and I don't know if we should make an exception right now. I think we need to talk about the ordinance and see what we're gonna do with the ordinance, but we have a lot of money at stake here. And, you know, we're putting together a spot to park the trucks, and I'm not saying that once we look at it, that it wouldn't go through. But I would rather not risk the road until we sit down and talk about it.
Ray, do we have a place for him to be able to park though?
Well, he could park down here, but I think, you know, like we just said, that his concerns is that you know, it's not just driving his truck home with him or dropping off the trailer, he has to take the whole rig home. So he would rather not park the whole thing down here and try to get back up to his house.
And you can't disconnect.
It's still over, though, weight-wise.
Still
Oh,
over
it's-
the truck itself is over.
Who came up with the number, the actual number of 27,000 pounds?
That was what, at the time, myself and the police chief were tasked by the council, you know, to come up with language. And when we went through it, that was a number that was, you know, we looked at FedEx trucks, UPS trucks, school buses, recreational vehicles. We looked at all the different types of vehicles, different types of weights. We did look at the tractor weight, typical tractor weight, not in his case, but in most tractors that are under 26,000 pounds.
And there's no way to test it to bump that up the road? Like, is Baco able to say,
Well, the engine-
well, I know our road is tested, oh, we can test,
What
we
does
can
the
have.
engineer say on that?
Well, they're definitely concerned about a loaded, you know, 158, 160,000 pound loaded log truck. Definitely concerned about that.
You would
But-
just be going empty?
But they, because of the axle distribution, as far as weight goes, they didn't have much concern about it. I think if you could work out an issue that Mark was talking about with the turning, they thought that had a merit, that you could have some, over time, you could have some abrasions,
And then
issues.
that's how you gotta get into your
Because of the
driveway, you gotta make a turn.
But I can also go out a different way too if I had to.
That
where
just
you
may
wouldn't
be a
be turning on.
procedural issue that we talked
That's
about.
fine.
You could
To where you
go,
wouldn't be turning as sharp as you are now.
Correct.
you just come out and go up to Springview and
Yeah.
out that way.
Yeah, I could go that way, or I could come in that way at night and go out, scenic drive in the morning.
That's true, yeah, yeah.
I mean, whatever works. whatever I
Yeah,
can
that
make
would
it
save the
work.
wear and tear on cranking so heavy. Well, you'd be making a U-turn otherwise,
Yes,
right out on the back.
but I
First
do,
Black.
I would say 85% of that turn is done in my driveway also.
What would we be doing if somebody came back and wanted, I mean, setting like a precedence, some of the roads downtown, say Tyler wanted to take the truck to his house over on, what are you, on mine there?
Yeah.
What would we do there then?
I think
Well,
you'd have to handle each case separately,
Each case
not to
separately,
set the precedent. If
And what the
was,
issue
Mr.
is.
Gustafson was allowed to do this, there'd be no precedent set.
What good is
Each
the
case
ordinance, though,
individually.
if you don't follow the ordinance?
Well, there were different reasons why the ordinance was put in place. It wasn't all just weight. We had a number of cases where we had many complaints about size, you know, and noise, you know, in the residential neighborhood. You know, where Rick's at, he really, it's open. He doesn't have the houses like we do in a center part of town. So, you know, you really, it is case by case. I mean,
And no
it's-
complaints by any neighbors, because I live up there.
As far as I'm
No.
aware of, there was never any complaints
Right.
made by any of the neighbors. I mean, Daryl Finley was just down the road, and I mean, he was sleeps with his window open, he said half time he never heard a leak from him. I try to go slow, I take my time, I know there's a lot of kids, I have kids myself.
Yeah, there's 16 kids in that neighborhood, don't tell me, I know.
Probably see them all.
Yeah.
So if something were to happen right now, or, because it's warranted for a year, right? This road, so if something were to happen now because of his truck or whatever, would they still cover that within a year?
Well, I believe so, if they can prove that it was an unusual, it shouldn't have happened. You know, you'd have to go through and, again, we'd have to go through with the engineers and you know, when we talked about the damage on the roads initially, they were shocked. I mean, that this early, there would be some kind of damage, you know, so, within that first year, I don't think they really think that there's gonna be a tremendous amount of impact, especially for something on low, you know, lighter in weight. But they did have concern about the abrasion. That was definitely something that,
So definitely unloaded, right? And this would be until, we come up with a plan?
yeah, if we get together within the next 30 days, I would even recommend having our engineer come with. Because, you know, they're tasked with designing the pavement in a subbase and whatever else we're doing.
So
we're gonna
what
be
are you
leaning on
gonna
them anyway.
do then if Mr. Bilski comes back and he wants to go through there,
Loaded or unloaded?
unloaded?
But different circumstances.
Different
He's not going to
circumstances, he's
his
got another route he
residence.
can go. I mean, that's what we talked about earlier. We have provided alternative routes. We have, especially now with Railroad Avenue, you know, if somebody's coming down, they can come to the bottom and he'll take a left and go to Railroad and then go out to the highway. So it's not true to say they can't get to the highway. And something just purely out of convenience like that, I mean, you have to look at and say, does that rise to the point of where you want to give an exemption?
Well, if you're talking about a temporary permit, I would think 60 days would be more reasonable than 30, just because of the holiday coming up.
Grant, what do you, how do you feel from your position on precedent in this conversation? Not to put you on the spot, but.
Well, you like doing that anyway. I mean,
I know.
precedent, you guys can say you don't, it's not setting precedent, but, and perhaps it's not. I mean, somebody's not gonna be able to show up and say, well, you gave it to Rick, therefore you have to give it to me, but they're gonna use it. I mean, I would, if I came in and I had a truck someplace else and I'd say, well, wait a minute, Mr. Gustafson got it. So, I mean, it's not binding, but it's something that, for your consideration, that certainly somebody would look at and say, well, hold on, city council, Mr. Gustafson got it, so why can't I? But I think that you guys have pointed out the obvious, that each case is different. Rick lives up on the outskirts of the city limits, and, but then there's also the issues with the Norway Road. So each case is a little different, and I think the city council can look at it and differentiate and break it down and look at each individual instance. But, does it set a binding precedent? No. But will other individuals that come in after asking for an exemption as well utilize it for that reference? I'm sure they would.
So, I mean, what would you plan on doing with Thalia then? Because Thalia's residency is right there too, and he has to disconnect the trailer. So, I mean, there's a good chance that he's gonna be coming back and saying the same. So, I mean, just so we know, or are we gonna grant him variance too because he lives there and he had some concerns?
I think you just hit the key word, and I was going to say, I was listening to Grant and talking about the case precedent. This is very much like what we go through with the variation on zoning from the ZBA. There's a finding of fact. We go through and we list the hardship, we list the conditions, so that if it comes up something similar but different, you can use that. I mean, I'm sure in a court of law they would go back and look at what are the factors to make the decision, and you have to clearly articulate those, or at least document those, so that if they're different enough, it's not precedent. There was a reasonable reason to grant exception. As far as Mr. Thaler, I did have a conversation with him early on, and he's got a different case, similar but different. Each one has its own, he has a different kind of truck. So, those are all factors that you look at, and each one of these has to come the same procedure. Come to you, you decide based on what evidence is given. And I'm just gonna give, technical information at this point, but really the decision is yours as a council.
I wish there was frost underground, because I know I have no issue in 40 to 30 days to say, yeah, go ahead, because we're not gonna wreck the road as long as it's frozen under. I don't know, cut it torn.
Well, to me, it sounds like he's got enough axles that it probably isn't gonna make that much difference.
The weight's distributed
If
correctly.
as long as the truck is empty, so I would be in favor of passing a 60-day temporary exemption with further discussion to be arranged
Why 60 days?
because of the holidays.
How many axles you got under?
Total 11, but there's 7 on the ground at all time.
And if you could make an effort not to do a U-turn,
Right.
Well,
as
that could
far
be,
away from that as you could get.
Yes.
that could be put in the resolution as long as the truck is empty and he doesn't make any,
For this extended period of 30 or 60 days,
yeah,
whatever you
whatever,
want.
45, 32, or whatever you want.
Well, I just said 30. See? Would 30 days be enough?
Yeah,
Do we sit down and
as long as we can sit down and try to come to an agreement, I guess,
I'm not for the 60 days.
We make a,
what did you say, Candy?
I'm not for the 60 days.
Oh, 30.
I think we gotta get together and decide one way or another.
Okay,
Has
I'll,
nothing to do with you personally.
I'll make a motion then that we, Mr. Gustafson gets a 30-day exemption
I'll
on this
support.
ordinance 412.
I'll support the 30 days.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Ricky, you said that was 57,000 you got empty? Yeah. Okay.
Next on the agenda, parking lot exemption for ordinance 365.
It's a very similar issue. We have two separate businesses downtown. Mike Lieber from Mike's on Main, and actually a dual request from Jimmy Peterson and Chris Gottstein. They share living space or parking space actually in behind it. It's actually owned by Chris. Jim has no room behind his building. Chris allows him to utilize some of that area because he has boxes and appliances and whatnot. And during the winter, both individuals, for different reasons, are asking for one space to allow them to park overnight, regardless of odd or even. Mike has some events where it goes late and then has to be right back up early. He actually just stays there and opens back up. So rather than drive the 30 miles, go home, or if he gets out 3 in the morning, 2, 3 in the morning, to have to go ahead and move his vehicle. So I gave you a little map to show you. It would be back in the corner of the parking lot per that map. And I also talked with our DPW, asking about potential impact with plowing, because that's really why we have the ordinance, is to allow us to clean out the lot. They thought that the one spot back in the corner would have no effect whatsoever on what they do to make sure the lot gets clean. Especially in Chris's case, he actually has a truck with a plow. He would be more than happy to help us out when he moves in the morning to clear that out. So, but anyway, they're asking for similar, to give them a waiver for.
Where would Mike, from Mike's on Main park?
Where would Mike park? Right by his dumpsters, basically. It's in that, would be in the southeast corner of the parking lot.
And
So
would
it's
he,
like
would
back.
he take care of if there's any snow or anything there?
I didn't really ask him that. The guys, they come in with the plow truck, or not the plow truck, but the pickup truck. So, they'd probably come back later and he would move and they would scrape it out. That's probably what would happen with him.
The concern that I have, Ray, is that I think we're setting precedents because we have this parking lot over by the Masonics by Bruce. I think Bruce's tenants use it quite a bit, Mr. Kivisari and some of the other ones. I think we're setting precedents because right now they have to walk from down by the Rialto on either the even number days or the odd number days. We have Sundance Builders Apartments up above there that they were parking in Talons. They're no longer welcome there. So they're gonna be parking over here. And we also have that 8th Avenue Antiques, and when he gets his house done, it's gonna be rental there, and they're gonna be required to move back and forth. And I think Mr. Godstein, he would be walking across the street from the Rialto parking lot on either the even or odd number days, and the same with the Rialto
Well,
gentleman.
Chris made it clear that he would use his parking lot. So really, it would be Jimmy that would have to figure out what to do. So,
Well, I just think that we're setting ourselves up for this parking lot over here to be full all the time, because it's closer for all the apartments, so.
well, just like the last ordinance, that this particular request can only be granted by the council. That's what I fully informed them of, and that, is up to council as to how they would adjudicate this and come to their decision. As far as, I think that both of these cases, they're explaining it from a business standpoint, not so much like on the residential side, but that's up to council if you think that that's too close, or if Grant, you think that's too close for precedent for residential, apartments, whatnot.
That one you're giving me a little closer too. That, I mean, I think that, I think you're both hitting on some of the high points. I mean, I think it would, I think it's not a big leap to have some of these tenants coming back asking for something similar. It's overnight parking. That's what everybody's asking for, is overnight parking. But it's, as Ray's indicated, it's completely up to council and council's decision.
Well, Peterson Electric's been in business in this town since the 30s. And I'm all for helping them any way that we possibly can, because there are no businesses left on the main street. So I'm all for this, again, without setting precedent. Take it case by case. And if this fails and Mr. Gottstein wants to park in his lot, which he has all the right to do, that's going to put a big crimp on Mr. Peterson, big time.
What does Jim use that lot for, Ray?
Well, Chris allows him space in his lot. He has cardboard, the large appliance cardboard, he stacks back in there. He also has appliances that come back, you know, they're outside for pickup. So he uses it in an area to stage for pickup of this. Otherwise, he'd have them in the alley, and you know, we're trying to plow the alley, and he might have an appliance back, and we'd be on him about, you know, that issue.
And we didn't have that case last year.
I don't know how they worked it out last year. We've had issues with some of that.
I think the big thing that Mr. Gottstein wasn't living there last year.
That is true.
But now that he is, I think he still is. I mean, and this
Yeah, he's
vehicle is
upstairs.
parked there.
The only other thing we could do is payment in lieu of parking, like we've done a few other times with Bernie's and with, what's his name,
Van Hollow.
Van Hollen.
That was rescinded though for Van Hollow.
Was that rescinded, Ray?
Didn't he get his money back on that?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Without looking, I think you're right.
Yeah. The reasoning behind it, I don't remember, but I know he was charged for it, and then for whatever the reason, he was rescinded on it. So as far as I know, the only one that ever had to pay in lieu of parking was the restaurant up there, Bernie's.
Did Bobby Chartry pay in lieu of parking at one time?
I'd have to go back and look. I'm thinking there was some conversation with that.
I believe there was.
I think
And
there
he's
was.
on the main street also.
Yeah, but I kind of think this is a different situation because Mr. Peterson needs that backdoor entrance there. He needs that lot. And I kind of agree with Lee. He's been in business a long time. We don't have that many businesses on Main Street anymore. So it's not just somebody saying, well, I want to park there. It's because, the only reason we would grant it is because he needs that parking. You know, that he's going to allow Jim to use that parking, that spot.
Would someone like to make a motion?
I will make the motion that the request to receive exemption from ordinance number 365, winter parking regulations in parking lots on Main Street for both businesses.
I'll support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
No.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
We have
Number 16.
Oh.
Approval to request purchase city-owned property.
All right, last item on the agenda, we have a request to purchase city-owned property. Mark brought in a request this past week, and we had a policy that was passed in May of 2015 on how to handle city-owned property for sale. As part of that policy, the request needs to come directly to council, and so, Mark, you want to give your proposal?
Mark Olani, 1051 Murray Road, Norway. There's a piece of property that's up on the east side of town. It's on the US 2 right-of-way, or it's on the US 2 frontage. It's in front of a 1,600-foot mine pit, and then or shaft, and then there's a pit up there. I wanted to construct a billboard. So I was looking at purchasing 50 feet by 500-foot right-of-way. It does have a power line right-of-way running through it. It is an unbuildable piece of property for anything but a signage. There is a sign that's there for the Catholic Church that's not affected. There's another directional sign that is there that is built through the city that could possibly be moved down and accommodate the property sale. I do have a couple other options that I could use, but this was one that I was hoping to use. So it's not the end of the world, but it would be a good option for what I'm looking for, and it would utilize the property. And I also keep the property on that side by the existing billboards mowed and cleaned up year-round, and I think it would look nice.
I guess one of my questions would have to be, and I already talked to Mark about this, he wasn't sure. We have that sign on there, and we're getting $50 per month for that sign, right? Is that right, or 60?
50.
50. So, we're making that income come in, and I don't know if Mr. Carollo is willing to move that sign or not.
Well, I talked to Mr. Wiseman about it, and he said because that property is considered income property, which is the $600 a year, that jumps the value of it way up. I mean, the $1,000 without that sign would be pretty much of a no-brainer. But according to the city assessor there, he said that makes it a lot more. Now, if Corollo's sign disappears, moves,
It's a
whatever.
non-transferable permit through the
Right,
city. It's
right.
a directional permit, so if something happened to Mr. Carollo, the sign couldn't be left there in the eyes of the state. So like I said, I have other options, so it's not the end of the world. I just thought it would clean up that area, and I think it would be a nice asset to that area.
On that part, I agree with you, Mark. I'm just saying, because of that sign there already, and who knows, maybe tomorrow it'll be taken care of, but might be another 5 years, you know.
I suspect Mr. Corolla would rather pay $1,000 for the property and the $25 for property tax on it every year than the $50 a month that he's now paying. So I think the city would come out losing on this deal, it sounds like.
Yeah, I don't know how you look at it. If it was long-term for the sign, yeah, I think they would lose, but it's excuse me, if it was short-term for the sign, I believe they would lose, but I don't know if I don't think they would benefit under long-term.
What did he change that assessment to? Was it like
8,500.
8,500?
Myself, I think that's a little ridiculous, but I'm not gonna argue with the assessor.
That's what the assessor said?
Being that the other sign is there.
They're collecting money, yes.
Once the sign was gone, if the sign had to be taken down in the eyes of the state, he felt that $1,000 was an acceptable amount of money for it, because if you sit down and figure it out like Ray had it on paper, that's $1,700 an acre, even though it's not an acre, and there is an easement running through there. So, like I said, it's not the end of the world.
And it's a rock pile.
It's a rock pile with a shop.
Grant, do you remember if the agreement that was signed by Mr. Corolla was signed by him or were under the name of the LLC that they have for the?
I don't recall. I seem to remember, I remember checking into that, wondering if it was with Carollo Properties or Carollo himself. And I don't remember when it was signed. I don't recall if he signed it and filed it with.
But if the agreement is under the LLC, you know, then I don't know how the permit is, but I know the agreement with them. I think I remember the LLC being in that agreement.
Is
Best
Mr.
of my knowledge, the permit is under his personal name.
Okay.
When I checked, the best of my knowledge.
Is Mr. Carollo willing to move the sign or no?
I did not ask him
Okay.
in one way or the other. I think you talked to him, but
I just thought it would be better if I purchased the property, and I didn't say much.
I talked to you earlier, you were gonna get get a map of, that's quite a bit of frontage, 500 feet, what the land behind that is like, or
There
what's
was
that?
a map, in the packet, I believe, it was.
It's in there, Doc.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, who owns the property back there? City.
City
owns
owns City owns property.
This is not divided out.
Okay, so the city owns everything back there.
Right, we own
And how far up does the city own, like,
Up to
Lake
the
Road, basically?
Up to
Lake
the
Road?
road, yeah.
Give or take.
Again, I don't think it'd be wise to sell all the frontage for land, even if the land is fairly worthless. You're still just selling the frontage. I think we ought to sell the whole thing or
You
nothing.
can't sell the whole thing because there's a substation for the electric department on top of the hill. And the rest of it is a mine shaft and mine pit, so you wouldn't want to sell around the substation, because if you ever had to modify the substation, you wouldn't be able to do it.
Very much you could do with the frontage there. Did you go look at it? Because there's all rock, iron ore there.
No.
My
They-
main thing is though, if we're already making money on it, why would you sell it for that amount of money?
Under the policy, there's not a whole lot of work that's done on staff's part prior to the presentation. Because under the policy, you have up to 60 days to decide whether or not you want to move forward. And you decide how you want us to move forward as far as investigations. If you say, we'll bring this back in a couple weeks, but check out, like you said, check out the land, check out, you know, you would direct us to do some things. We don't put any time into it, because we don't want to do a bunch of work and you turn it down, you know, right at the initial stage. That was the intent of the whole, with the policy. And the other is, if you do move forward, then you would be required to get an appraisal, the survey, you know, all of the paperwork would be on the onus of the buyer.
I was gonna ask you, is this legal for him to purchase this as a sitting council member?
If the council's inclined to approve it, the first thing I'd say is make sure it's subject, I learned about this when I was looking at this on Saturday morning, the agenda, and it kind of, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I did get a chance, I had a hearing today, so I was limited a little bit, but I came across some things I'd like to look a little deeper into. I think it's kind of the, loosely, the Public Employee, Public Servant Contract Act, which generally prohibits governments from entering into contracts with people that are sitting either in the government as the council, sitting, you know, you can imagine Governor Schneider entering into a contract to buy or sell something for the state of Michigan on a bigger scale. On our smaller scale here in the city council, you know, Mark has taken the steps to take his hat off as a city council member, go out into the audience, and he's here as a citizen asking the council's time to take a look at this. But I think at least there's some issues that potentially could be there. I think Mark's taken his steps to take a step back, but I just ask if the council is inclined to do it, make it conditioned upon me having a chance to double check that, because I thought I saw, just perusing it really quickly, there might be some issues with the appropriateness of it at this time, doing business and entering into any kind of a contract with the city while sitting as a city council member.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, as long as that sign is still there, we should keep it. Because if we do sell the 50 by the 500 feet, we're gonna lose $600 right there, and we're only selling it for $1,000. Next year, we're ahead of the game already.
I think that's what you had said as well.
I mean, if that sign wasn't there, fine, go ahead, great, no problem.
I'd like to table it, talk to Mr. Crowell.
Well, we got 60 days.
Oh, we got 60 days. Yeah, we talked to Mr. Crowell. Grant can look into this more.
But now
and
we
make
don't
sure
want
it's the
Grant to get,
LLC.
we don't want Grant to get involved in this too much.
And then turn it
because-
down. Yes, I
Because
agree.
it's only $1,000. No
Absolutely.
offense, Grant.
No
He
offense.
said,
we don't-
he
we
said-
don't wanna
that's
bill
what
for
I'm saying, it's a
5 hours
freebie. I'll
either,
help
you
you
know?
guys out. Yeah, and we are getting $600. What's the taxes on that a year?
Well, if it's
If we were to sell it?
if you were to sell it for $1,000, and that's what it would be assessed at, you would pay tax, he would pay taxes on $500, and the actual city portion of that is 16 mil, so $16 per thousand, so it'd be $8.
It would be more than that though, because it's not homestead.
Yeah, but I'm just saying what the city would receive, the city's share, you would pay more now, you would pay $47 per
Just the city
thousand.
would get $8 more.
$8 per year.
Not a
Per
month, a
year.
year.
Per year, yeah.
Okay.
I agree too, let Grant look more into this before we make
look at, we gotta look and see if it's an LLC or if it's in his name, and if Mr. Carollo is willing to.
Ray, can you get a hold of Mr. Crollo, or are you on good terms with him, or he would talk to you?
Sure.
If Mr. Corolla is willing to move the sign, I don't have a
Yeah,
problem.
he
If he's
might be,
not,
yeah.
Well, I have,
Because that would be
Problem.
$600 for their,
we're
the
losing
property
money
sale.
then on it.
But what if Mr. Corolla moves the sign in a different part of the,
There was a second location where we had given him a letter indicating with his two signs, he had taken one down and kept one up. There was
That's
one
right.
that was farther east. So there was one spot that he already had a location.
Well, I guess this is tabled.
You do a motion to table it?
Do we?
I think it's,
I'll make a motion, we table.
support?
Mr. Babalani, sorry, Dr. Hayes,
No.
Mr. Menegini,
Yes.
Mr. Pop,
Yes.
Mrs. Brew,
Yes.
Anybody in the audience like to address the council on any issue? Please come forward and state your name.
Danny Olson, W6536, US2, Quincy. Local control. I am all for local control. Being part of the Township Association, that's very important. And I'm glad the way you people are doing your meeting today. You know, a lot of times, I'm sitting on that side. But just as much as I'm sitting on that side of the bench, I'm on this side, all over the state, working on issues. So, my point is, I'm all for local control. I think you guys are on top of this subject. But I think the best thing we gotta look at is number one is the safety issue. We gotta look at that. Number two, there's gonna be a lot of different products going on a lot of your roads and streets. I think if Norway's gonna keep moving forward, then we gotta look at things moving forward. When I say products, gravel is one. I've had a number of my customers come to me since this topic has come up about no trucks on certain streets that have been talking to me in the last month. I've also, coming from the timber industry, I've had many people talk about that. There's people bidding timber sales right now on state jobs back in that area. How do we get that timber out of here? We all know how important the mill is here, and we got two in Dickinson County that came here. One of their biggest reasons they looked at Dickinson County when the Quinnipiac mill came here, when the LP mill came here. Roads. Getting the access to this timber that they need. And we're all concerned about keeping those jobs and keeping those people going here. We know the heartbreak of when the Niagara Mill closed. We don't need that for the rest here. You have a very costly thing called a police department. That doesn't come cheap. And from what I've seen, you have a good police department. And I think they are very capable of overseeing and watching a lot of the things going on with all your roads. So, I think all trucks, no matter what size, should be looked at. As you're driving around, follow a delivery truck. And they're really busy this time of year with Christmas. Check their speed. Check how they're driving. I think you will find some of the bigger trucks are some of your best drivers out there. And remember how I started, safety has to be number one. How do we get this timber out of these north country up here? Well, as you heard Al Bilski talk about the bridge going to Loretto. For many years, I've been hauling wood for 44 years. For many years, you went out to Loretto. But when that bridge, when they did a test on it, and it doesn't take the 164,000 or 154 or whatever our weight, with the way our axles are and the way the length and all that's set up. So, we're shut off. Would our industry love to get that bridge? You bet we would. The last place in the world is we want to get all that timber through this little funnel. And we want to work with you to accomplish this. And what's in your favor right now with this 30 days that you just granted on this exemption, the ground's going to be frozen. I don't think it's going to be thawing out for about 120 days. You got that in your favor. And when spring breakup comes, there is nothing saying that you couldn't put the same limits on that the county road commission has to put on and keep the weight off those trucks. Keep those trucks off of those roads. Do you realize how much damage has been done with the poor road coming from the Norway Spring and to go out to the Benton's Lake area? With those poor roads, all those years, that has cost the truckers thousands and thousands of dollars, and it comes down to a safety issue also. I commend the council for getting that road fixed. And the last thing in the world we want to do as a trucker is wreck that road, because a poor road costs us money. So I would like to see, and had a good chat with Ray tonight, or this afternoon late, and I would like to see a group of you, whether it's the whole council or a couple of you, so you don't have a quorum, and set up a committee, and we could get a number of us together, and let's talk roads and see what we can do. Because there's a lot of people concerned about this and how the products are gonna move. And let's keep it safe. So I would be very honored to be part of that. I don't have to be, but I represent the Great Lakes Timber Professionals Association. And I know that our association wants to be a team player and be involved with the roads so that we can do our jobs. And that's what we need in this area's jobs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the audience? Any other issues? We've heard several suggestions tonight to form a committee. Is there any council members who would like to be on the committee?
All set.
I would.
Maybe can you get a hold of Mr. Anderson then? We'll have two council members, and I guess there's certainly willing people in the audience to participate in the committee. Alan and Dennis. Maybe Ray, you can get together with your committee of four. Do you need anybody else on there?
Rick, maybe?
Rick.
You should have Rick on there.
Yeah, I would recommend that a spokesperson, you would put together whoever you would like. I guess it would be Scott and Mark, myself.
Howie Coleman.
Yeah, I would have someone from Coleman Engineering. So I really just choose whoever to participate. You know, they don't have to get a hold of me. We'll pick a date. You want to be the contact?
Me, you,
Okay, you can let everybody else know
Okay.
about, we'll meet here and then we'll set up a date in the very, very near future.
This week,
No.
Weimar tomorrow, Lansing the rest of the week.
Yeah.
So next week, if you can make it, would be great.
Next week is good for me.
I can't Monday night, I got board meeting.
We'll do it right after your board meeting.
Pardon?
We can do it right after your board meeting.
Okay,
I'll get a hold of you.
we got a long one coming, just like you.
Well, that's okay. Okay. I'll get a hold of you.
Thank you so much.
That's the first, Dennis.
Any council comments to Mr. Pop?
I stopped and I talked to Mr. Schaefer today. I asked him about the new squad. This new squad cars, they're enjoying it. It's a little bit higher than the old one. They seem to like that better, you know, you don't have to in and out. It's easier to control. There's not much else, you know. Starting to get cold out there, buckle up or bundle up, and we're gonna start getting snow, so please be safe out there.
I have nothing.
I got a couple items here. It was nice to see on the front page of the Daily News our 3 pictures of our Christmas parade.
Oh, I forgot about that.
The Christmas parade was awesome. There were even a couple floats in it. And a special thanks, well, the kids were all lined up, and a special thanks to the people involved in marching from, who was it, from Goofy to SquarePants, SpongeBob? Cartoons have changed, I guess, from years ago. And a question for you, Ray, I hope you know the answer. They're having this recount, and it has to be done by hand. It can't be done by computer because the computer's going to kick out the same answer. So Florence, or Wisconsin, started this morning, I guess, and now we're supposed to. Who's paying for it? The Green Party is paying for Wisconsin. I don't care about Wisconsin. I want to know who's paying for the count here, the recount. Because the woman that's calling for it got 1% of the vote. Like, this is going to change something? And they all agree, it's not going to change anything.
Our clerk has been on top of this issue with the county.
Who's paying for it? Not us. I think.
Well, that's where I'm going, as long as it's not us.
We are, 'cause she.
Of course, it's still going to be state money, I think.
Right.
Although I said the Green Party said they were going to pay for the recount in Wisconsin. That's what they said. Now, they want to come up with the $3 million, well.
She called and asked if I would work Monday, 7:30 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Next Monday.
Monday the 12th.
Oh, okay.
I
And,
believe what they're doing is they're having all the clerks participate in this for the county.
well, I said, I know it has to be counted by hand.
I just
I mean,
asked that today.
I don't know how many ballots are cast in the whole state of Michigan, but here it is going to be bad, but I can imagine some of these bigger precincts where you have thousands and thousands of people going through. Oh, and the fireworks was very nice. There are a lot of people there. And one other thing I have here, a little congratulation to the Norway High School Key Club. They adopted a highway. The Norway High School Key Club is adopting a 1.14 portion of Piers Gorge Drive, with members committing to do cleanup. These cleanups are done twice a year, and it'd be nice if we could have more organizations and/or people get involved in this. And that's all I have, Ray.
I got a couple, Doc, wanting to know how we're doing on the automated meter installation and purchasing or whatever we're doing with that, since it was such an important topic.
We're out of meters and we're waiting on delivery.
Okay, how many meters do we have, rough guesstimate,
Well,
left to change?
Left to change most of them. What happened was they had to make a change on the electric side. I don't know, Mary, I don't know if it was a serial code or was something, and
Programming.
it was a programming thing, and so we've been waiting for 6 months on trying to get the new pallets of meters in. So most of the meters, they haven't come yet.
Well, on a $750,000 project, I think that somebody should be making some calls because this has been on the agenda through public, I had brought it up, Candy had brought it up, and the system's gonna be outdated by the time we get it installed at the way we're running it right now.
I have been on the phone the last 2 weeks, and remember, we have a 5 to 6 year period on these meters, on installation, because of the budget. We can budget different amounts each year, but we had planned a 3 to 5 year installation, so I have been on the phone with them, and
Project this size, they should have the meters available. I'm totally disgusted with that whole situation.
well, what they promised me for next year was that they will order meters based on our budget, and they will house at no cost those meters. So all we do is call them up and we can receive them.
Is that through WPPI?
That's actually through HD Supply, different company. WPPI is on the billing side. So HD Supply, been on the horn with them for the last week steady, but that's what they said that they're going to do for next year. So when we go through budget, we will identify the meters we're going to install for the year. They will house those meters, and so we will not have a delivery issue.
So we've been waiting 6 months on meters.
Yeah, we put in an order in June for meters, and for various reasons over the course of this time, it's coming, and then, so.
How long are we gonna have 2 people on the Parks and Recs Committee, being it's winter conditions? We had a part-timer, I believe, I think he's part-time,
Seasonal,
seasonal.
I believe he's done.
I believe he is going to be done this Friday. I think this is his last week.
Yep, and they're switching over into DPW for different, with the snow and different DPW functions.
So that's
But
gonna
he's
take place Friday. I asked a couple weeks back for a list of vehicles that aren't being used. We got a heck of a collection down at the shop. I'd like to see them go out for auction or junk or whatever we got going on. We got 3 garbage trucks down there. I know we need a spare, but some of this stuff is accumulating, and I think it needs to be taken care of. The only other thing I was talking to Ray about was that the mirror, the parking lot over by, that we're working on with Mr. Carollo and his wetland that we paid for, and we were looking at putting mitigation site on Kimberly Road, and we're gonna be using a valuable piece of property that's 4 acres. I think we need to look at that and come up with a different option. We're wasting a good piece of property that could be sold for creating a wetland.
Where's that at, Mark?
It's on Kimberly Road. It's a 4-acre parcel.
What he's referring to is actually under the permit application. We got word back that the DEQ representative was not sold on the original proposal of using existing wetland for putting into trust, basically what you do, just like we did with the mirror. He didn't deny it, but he's asking a lot of questions and asking for alternatives. So in order to keep the process going, that was an area that was close by that we offered up as an alternative, because in his mindset, you need to mitigate, not just save. But what I did was I asked for a conference with him, face-to-face, and because we've had these discussions before, we maybe are on a different ideas on how this, with the zoning and with different things within that area. So that was just a alternate plan. Also, I did not get a chance to even brief the DDA. That came up between their last meeting and this meeting, which is coming up here next week. So that would be something we have to discuss at the DDA meeting as well.
I mean, that's
Because they
gonna
may
be,
be in the same boat. They may not they might want a different direction.
That's gonna be an expensive parking lot. We're paying for the permitting with the DEQ. The application process, I believe that's costed us a couple $1,000s. We don't own the property. We're paying a good piece of money for the property if it's the agreement that was talked about. And now we're sacrificing a 4-acre piece of property, all for that parking lot. I respect the DDA's decisions and guidelines, but I think as a council, we need to step into this if this is the way this is going.
Well, we do need the parking lot.
Yeah, but how much do you want to put out for a parking lot?
Is this, I guess we have to look at the 4 acres, is that currently for sale?
No. That's the area on the opposite side of the,
Part of the mirror, basically?
it's right off of Kimberly.
So it's part of the mirror?
We kept it out of the mirror just in case we wanted to sell it. At some point in time, it's on the opposite side of the creek. It was an area that we actually had in one proposal for the parking area, but because of access, with the buses and different reasons, it made sense to have the parking off of US 2 as opposed to Kimberly. So this has been going on for 10 years, going back and forth. Where do we get, how do we have better access into that park?
All said and done, a guesstimate, I'm thinking it's that parking lot, that small parking lot, in the end, by the time we fill it, get the permitting, purchase the property, and if we wind up sacrificing this, it's gonna be an $80,000 parking lot. Plus the asphalt.
Is that estimate close?
I'm not even gonna comment on that because that seems high, but I'd have to look at the details.
I know you're strongly against that, Mark, but maybe you should go to a DDA meeting and try to convince them.
I would be happy to.
Second Wednesday of the month at noon.
And it's Wednesdays noon, but
Second
I'm not sure if
Wednesday,
it's
I
the
think.
first or second.
Second Wednesday of
Second
every month at noon.
And that money's gonna have to come out of the Parks and Recs and the DDA.
It comes out of the DDA. Doesn't come
Strictly,
out of,
totally out of the
totally out
DDA.
of the DDA. It doesn't come out of the Parks and Rec.
Well, it's still city funding.
Any other comments?
Nope.
How are we doing as far as meeting with the DNR concerning the pits? Is there any movement there, Adele?
Grant, how are we doing?
Spoke with Mr. Scullen immediately before deer season, and he indicated, as you can imagine, he and Officer Bacon were entering some of their busiest times, and asked that we get back together here in early December. So give me a holler as soon as you are available and things calm down a little bit. And it's early December yet, but it's on my calendar. Ray and I talked about it the other day, of making that was one of our things that we didn't want to push off to the side. So I gave him the deer season to keep his busy
And now it's
time
black
going.
powder season, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
It's still bow season, too.
it's still bow
Full
season.
season, whatever.
Until January 1st.
Dennis Ice Fishing.
He was very optimistic. When I broached the subject to him, and explained some of the ideas that Ray and I had as far as sitting down with them, talking about the city wanting to be a partner and with the DNR and understanding a little bit of some of the background on perhaps what led to the discussion. He was very open and frankly, I think excited to have that discussion take place and was optimistic. So I thought it was a good conversation. I think it's just a matter of maybe when now that it's slowed down, hopefully a little bit for him, coordinating some calendars.
We need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion, we go into closed session.
Support.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
There will be no business after closed session. So we've got to do this to make people happy. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Support.
The whole council supported.
Mrs. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Mr. Pop?
Yes.
It's 10 o'clock. Good night.